Today I'm going to talk about mental health, and this is initially why I created Esoteric Jade, was to talk about mental health and spirituality and combining the two, but I've kind of gone off on a couple different tangents since then, so I'm bringing it back because mental health is a really important thing to talk about, and there is so much sugarcoating out there, there's so much fake superficial stuff, especially in the personal development spiritual space. I just can't deal. So I'm just going to share what's coming to my mind right now, some of the messages that I've channeled, some of the things that have helped me. So I'm going to look down because I've written notes on it just to keep me on track. But this is a really big topic to talk about, and I've really struggled sharing and opening up about this because I don't want to offend anyone or seem like I know what I'm doing because the truth is I don't know what I'm doing, and that's why I'm showing up here. Like, none of us know what we're doing, none of us have it all figured out. We're all going through this journey together, and I'm just meeting you where you're at. Now, when I was going through a hard time in high school and I started sharing with my friends, I didn't share much, but when I did, it was very competitive, like between all of us. Like, well, at least your parents aren't divorced, and at least you've got money, more money than my mum's got, and at least your dad still talks to you, and at least you're not on antidepressant drugs like I am because my depression's worse than yours. And it became like this one up of like who was the most depressed and who was the most fucked up. And it didn't help any of us throwing that crap back and forth with each other. And then you have other people coming in, it's normally the older generations, going, well, at least you're not blind, at least you've got legs that can walk, at least you have a roof over your head. And yes, that is true. But it's almost like they've made mental health a first world problem, and it's not. And this is why mental health is such an issue now, is because we've been downplaying it for so long, and we can't do that anymore. Mental health is not a first world problem. Everyone has mental health, everyone deserves good mental health, and everyone deserves joy, happiness, peace, love, and support. Everyone deserves that. That is everyone's birthright, and we need to talk about this more because the fact that we're downplaying it so much is why it's become such an issue of people comparing their trauma to others and going, oh, like, I can't express what I'm going through because there's all this shame around it, and my trauma isn't bad as someone else's trauma, so I'm not going to say anything. And there's so much shame and so much suppression that no one is healing. And we're seeing that, right? We're seeing that this problem is getting worse and worse because we're not addressing it properly. And I'm seeing this in the spiritual community as well. They're doing a little bit of a different twist on it. And the personal development, coaching, mentoring space of people saying, you're not depressed, you just think you are. You're not stuck, you just think you are. And if I'm depressed and I'm stuck, you saying that to me does not help. It actually does nothing. And this is what they're sharing so much, and this is wisdom that can help people, but it's not meeting people where they're at. There's a lot of people who are in like deep, dark depression, and when I was in it, I had a life coach come up to me and say, just stop grieving. Like, that didn't help me. I had someone else come up to me and say, Jade, it's time to let it go. Just let that shit go. No, it doesn't work like that. When I'm depressed, I'm not going to be able to, like, it didn't even compute in my mind, the thought of stopping grieving, like, because I was grieving so hard, I couldn't. And there's a lot of amazing things that these spiritualists and motivational speakers share, but it doesn't help people. For some people it doesn't help them because you're saying things like, oh, just tap into infinite consciousness and separate from your human and separate from the avatar. The avatar suffers, but you don't. And then there's all this shame of, maybe I'm not spiritual enough because I am still feeling depressed and this isn't working for me. And it's not working because all these high level, spiritual, enlightened people, and most of them are pretending, by the way, you can't meet them because you're not at that level of awareness. They might be sharing really helpful information, but it's not helping you because you're still stuck in the the depression. And you need someone to actually just validate your feelings and validate your emotions. And so many coaches, mentors, speakers are not right now. They're not validating you and your feelings. And how can you heal if you don't validate them first? Like, you need to acknowledge, yeah, I'm depressed, instead of doing this spiritual bypassing of going, no, I'm spiritual. I don't feel depression because I'm an eternal light being. But if you tell someone who's depressed, you're not depressed, babe, like, you're just an eternal light being, and none of this stuff matters, and you're tapped into infinite consciousness, it doesn't help. And it's happened to me, and I've just gone, that just doesn't compute in my mind right now. It's just not helping. And if you're sitting there feeling like you're going through hell, I'm not going to sit here and say the hell isn't real, because that doesn't help you. Further down the line, further along your healing journey, when you're out of that state, then we can sit around and laugh about how hell isn't real and that it's all just a mental prison, it's all in our heads, and that's just a journey that we had to get over, the illusion. But you can't tell someone their pain is an illusion when they're going through the pain, because it just hurts them more and gets them more stuck. And I've had so many people tell me, just move on, just get over it, let it go. That did not help me get through my mental health problems at all. And having someone on YouTube say that they don't feel depression anymore doesn't help you when you're in depression. It's like, dude, good for you, but I'm not feeling that right now. And you see like these spiritualists who are all zen and enlightened, and it's like, yeah, good for them, but I don't feel that. You can't resonate with them because you're not where they're at, and you need someone to validate and acknowledge you and acknowledge that, yeah, like, I am depressed right now, and that's okay. There's so many spiritual speakers, mentors, coaches out there that are literally acting emotionless, and they're almost like flatlined. Like, and a part of that, yeah, can be enlightenment. Like, they've got like no ego thoughts, and there's no problems, and they're not affected. But people, you're allowed to get affected. People get affected, and you're allowed to. And there's these speakers that we watch as motivation that they're just completely emotionless, completely unaffected by what happens, and you can't resonate with that. I never could, because I'm a very emotional person, but I'm emotional just like so many others, and we're emotional beings. Humans are emotional. We are energetic beings, and emotion is just energy in motion. We need to actually embrace all the emotions. You're allowed to feel depressed. You're allowed to feel anxious. You're allowed to feel upset, sad, happy, joy, all of it. You're allowed to feel. And there's so many people sitting on their little pedestal acting all enlightened and not really looking like they feel anything. And I look at these people and I go, like, I don't know if that's spiritual. I don't think I really want to do that, because they don't even look like they're in joy. It's just kind of this like flat line and like this seriousness to them, where they're so emotionally detached from everything. And an element of that is enlightenment. I'm not saying it's not, but for people who are going through a really hard time, you can't resonate with someone who goes, I'm happy all the time now, and I'm really good at managing my emotions, and I don't feel depression anymore. It's like, yeah, good for you, but I don't feel that right now. You can't actually relate with them. And even looking to someone that has everything you want, and looking to someone that is where you want to be and is happy, doesn't always help, because they're happy, they have the divine love, they have the money, they have the good house, the good friends, whatever it is, and I don't. There's still like that comparison, and looking to them sometimes actually delays us even more, because we're like, they're happy, but I'm depressed right now, and I just need someone to sit here with me and see me and hear me, hear what I have to say, acknowledge that I'm going through this, so there's not so much shame around it, because it's like we're almost shaming ourselves for feeling depressed, but you shouldn't feel shame for that, because I validate your experience and I validate what you've been through, whatever it is. You're allowed to feel this. And there's not enough people saying that and sharing that that message, and then it's like this shame, like I haven't done enough work because other people have gone through way harder things than me, and they're okay, and they're a good person, and they're happy now, and they have a great partner, and they're in love, and they have friends, and blah blah blah, whatever it is. You know, maybe they're stronger than I am. Maybe I'm not strong enough to do this. And it's always like we're always internalizing it. We see someone else happy and we're like, well, shit, I'm not. It doesn't help because you can't resonate with them. And you need someone to meet you where you're at and validate your experience and validate what you've been through. And so many people are sitting here acting like they're enlightened and zen and perfect, and it's a lie. Most of them are lying and pretending. Or if they are like truly in bliss, some of them, yeah, they're enlightened, that's great. Some of them are on drugs and like had to go to psychedelics to feel this bliss, to get out of their own suffering. Lots of people are escaping in their own ways, and we need to be more real and more honest about where we're at in our, like, as a collective, because as a collective we are not happy. As a collective, most people have depression or anxiety or some other mental health issue, and we can't ignore that anymore. We need to start actually allowing people to feel their stuff without feeling so much shame. There's so much shame on as a collective, and we're all holding it, and it's really, really, really hard to heal. And having these people saying how it's so easy and you're not stuck, you just think you are, and it's all in your mind, just get over it, like just detach from your mind. Like, it's really not that easy when you're in it. We can laugh about it later when we're out of it, but when I'm in it, I do not understand what you're saying. I do not understand all the motivational speaking and all the spiritual content that I watch. Like, half of it I didn't understand when I was like in my deepest, darkest depression. And I need to come on here and just like meet people where they're at, because I know how it feels and I was there too, and there's so much stuff out there that's just like confusing. And this is the problem of people faking it and making it out, downplaying it, making it out like it's not that big of a deal and it's so easy to get over. It doesn't feel like it's easy to get over when you're stuck in it. And it's not easy. It's not easy to get through deep pain and suffering, darkness and depression. It's not easy to get through that. Even well-known spiritual texts like A Course in Miracles was very hard for me to read when I was in my depression, because one of the biggest teachings in that book is that sin isn't real and sin doesn't exist and we're all eternally sinless. You cannot tell someone that when they've just been through a really hard experience, when they've been abused or assaulted or lied to or betrayed, that sin doesn't exist, because in that moment, in the state of mind that they're in, they can't comprehend that. And some of these esoteric spiritual teachings, it's not that they're not true, it's just hard for us to perceive them for the level of awareness that we're at in that moment. And when I was reading it and seeing all these messages of that sin isn't real, and you know, everything that's done to your human body doesn't get carried with you, your soul doesn't carry trauma into the next life, like you can just let it all go. I couldn't resonate with that because I was feeling so much trauma and so much depression. I was like, I don't get this. And having people say that we're eternal light beings, that's actually my genuine belief. That's my spiritual belief. But when I was in the depression, it was like so contradicting, because I believed it, but I didn't feel it. I was feeling the depression and the darkness when all I believed was that I was light. It was still like a really hard struggle for me, and I feel like a lot of people on the spiritual journey struggle with this, because we're still feeling the polarity of being human, and the good and the bad, and the dark and the light, and then we're learning, oh, you are light, and you're infinite consciousness, and it's all this amazing stuff, but you can't resonate with it, with where you're at. And so I really wanted to bring it back down to basics. Like I've already said what the problem is, that when we're really not helping people where they're at, and we need to start like very, very basic. And this is what has helped me and what I've realized and learnt in my own journey. Presence is the only place where life is, and you have to keep reminding yourself of that and snapping yourself out of your head, because it's so easy to forget that. It's so easy to forget that life is here and now when we're so stuck in our mind, stuck in the past, or worrying about the future. We're missing out on life by doing that. And I'm making this video because I've wasted so much of my life in my head and not living. And I want to make it very clear that you're not going to get anywhere if you're stuck in your head. I promise you. I promise you that you're not going to get anywhere. You need to start bringing yourself back to presence. When you're stuck in depression, anxiety, or any other mental health problem, you're in your mind, you're in the past, or you're in the future, and you're not being present. So the first thing you need to do is figure out how to get back into the present moment. And I have really struggled to make this video because I was like, I struggle with that too. I don't really know how to do that. And the other day I was at work and I was stuck in my head. I was spiraling out with all these thoughts, feeling sorry for myself, feeling all depressed that day. And then I felt something crawling over my foot, and I looked down and there was this giant cockroach crawling over my foot. My work's gross. And there was this cockroach crawling over my foot, and in that moment I screamed, I kicked the thing, I was like jumping up and down like a crazy person. And in that second, was I feeling depression? Were my thoughts going crazy? No. It was like everything just got wiped aside, and I was so present, just freaking out about this cockroach, that all those little worries and fears and doubts and all those things that I was dwelling and spiraling into literally all just disappeared in that split second. It was all gone. And I kind of like laughed to myself after. I was like, that's really funny, universe. That's literally what I need to start doing, is have something, not a cockroach, but have something every day that snaps me back into the present, where I can actually move those thoughts to the side and not have them affect me anymore. Not have them not be plagued by them like my entire day. I need something to like snap me back to the present, because this is where life is. Depression is when you're focusing on the past and dwelling on what happened and wishing that it came back. And anxiety is freaking out about the future, worrying and stressing, either that it's not going to be like before, or you're stressing that something back then is going to happen again. And so anxiety is also thinking about the past, where we're not ever present when we're in these mental health problems like depression and anxiety. We're not present. And I needed to remember what it felt like to be alive, because when you feel depression, you actually forget what it feels like to feel alive. If any of you have like really experienced it that deep, like it actually strips you of the feeling of feeling alive, because you're just vegetating and ruminating and in your head. And I don't even want to admit how many hours of my life I've spent staring at four walls, just vegetating and spiraling out my own little world and not living. So you really need to, on a daily basis, do something that brings you back to the present moment and snaps you out of your head, because that's the biggest problem, is that we're so, like, everything's so internalized and we're not expressing it outwards. We're not telling anyone our problems. We're holding it all in. And even if we do tell someone, people don't even help. Like, they don't even give any good advice these days. So it's before you start spiraling into this pit of doom that you have to then crawl out of, you need to catch yourself. As you feel like yourself spiraling, you've got to catch yourself to stop yourself from going deep down into the depths of the pain, of the suffering, of the depression. And for me, well, the cockroach did it when I at work the other day, but I'm not advising that, but it's just something that can just snap you back. And for me, it's always jumping in the ocean. And in Australia right now, it's winter, so it's freezing, and I just run into the water and just dive in, and all my worries, all my stresses literally just get wiped, because I'm too busy screaming at how cold the water is. I am brought back to present in that moment. I'm brought back to presence instantly, because you need to feel it in your body, because depression and anxiety, it's all in your mind. And to bring yourself back to presence, you need to actually wake up your body again. Your body needs to feel something. So it's jumping in the ocean. If you're not near an ocean, if you're near like a lake or something, literally just lunge into water. Bodies of water are perfect, and they're so amazing to snap you back into the present and back into nature. And I've got more ideas that then Spirit started channeling. Said like, even if you have kids and like you have a trampoline in your yard, like go and jump on the trampoline. I promise you it will help in some way. Like just start jumping and getting the body moving. You're getting out of your mind and into the body. You're feeling your body. And the body needs to feel something in order to come back into presence, or you'll literally just be vegetating in your mind. And it's something you got to do something to get you out of your stagnant, shallow breathing, vegetating state, because we're in that so much of the time, especially like if you're in an office job. Like most of the time we're just sitting and vegetating. That's the world that we live in now. We really need to start moving. But when you're so depressed, sometimes you don't have the energy to move. Like some people were telling me like, Jade, you got to get into running. And I was like, are you kidding? Like I don't even want to get out of bed in the morning. Like running that's not an option for me. So I would drive down to the beach because I was that lazy, and then I would just fall into the water because I did not have the energy to go for a run or exercise, do Pilates or whatever. In my worst moments, I couldn't exercise or do anything. Just falling into water was a thing to snap me back and to get me present. And also like that's why hot cold therapy is so good, because you're remembering what it's like to feel alive. And that's, depression takes that feeling away. But when we keep exposing ourselves to things that like literally like take our breath away, of this hot cold therapy, or going for a run, or jumping into freezing cold water, jumping on a trampoline, something that gets the body moving, you feel alive again. And that's what we need. And it might seem like really basic stuff, but it really, really helps. And things like yoga and breath work are incredible, because you're not only moving your body, but you're also releasing the stored trauma as well. So that's why especially breath work is just blowing up right now, because it's helping us come back into our body, back into our present, because you can't be in your mind when you're counting all your breaths. Like it just doesn't work. So it helps you become present, and it helps you kind of release all that. And when you start bawling your eyes out crying, it's so normal, because that's your body releasing it all. And in yoga postures help release everything. We saw so much emotional, mental tension in our bodies that when we hold yoga postures, we can release that either through our emotions, or we're just stretching the muscle and we're releasing that energy blockage. And because we store so much, we need to take time to release it and let it all go. And, even sticking your head out the car window and feeling the breeze on your face, and just jumping, skipping, running, jumping in water, whatever it is. All these are reminders that life is happening here and now. And this is what Spirit has started downloading, so this is why I'm looking down. But life is not happening in your head. Life is happening here and now. And I've spent so much of my life not living and vegetating and ruminating and dwelling and stressing and worrying and fantasizing about things that would never happen and rehearsing conversations that I'd never have, and I wasn't living. And it's so easy to get stuck there. So we need to just do anything to really just get out of our mind. And the thing that lots of therapists talk about are glimmers. And glimmers are like the good things in life. When someone's gone through a lot of trauma, we can still focus on trying to find a glimmer or a sparkle of hope in the depression or the anxiety that someone's going through. And so like the opposite is trigger. So we go through triggers and we go through glimmers. And when we focus more on the glimmers, we can slowly heal and be able to self-soothe and manage those triggers a lot better when we're focusing on the good.